The Zethkari had ruled the hunting grounds of Kepler 442b for over 8,000 years. Their obsidian scales caught starlight like liquid metal, and their 6 eyes could track prey across impossible distances. Each movement was calculated, each strike precise. They were evolution's masterpiece, the perfect predator. On their homeworld, massive crystalline spires stretched toward twin suns, casting rainbow shadows across hunting academies, where young Zethkari spent decades learning the ancient arts. The ritual of first blood alone took 50 years to master. The dance of silent death required another century. By the time a Zethkari reached maturity, they had become living weapons capable of stalking any prey across any terrain. Commander Velthara stood at the observation deck of the orbital hunting station, watching her apprentices practice in the gravity wells below. Her primary eyes tracked the graceful movements of young Kethmore as he attempted the 7th form of the Phantom Strike. His secondary eyes monitored thermal readings while his tertiary pair calculated wind patterns. It was beautiful to watch, like deadly poetry in motion. "Too eager," she murmured to her aide, Specialist Zardok. "He reveals his position 3 seconds too early." In the old times, such mistakes would mean starvation. Zardok's mandibles clicked in agreement. The soft prey of the outer systems has made our hunters complacent. Perhaps we need worthier challenges. Velthara turned her attention to the star charts floating beside them. The Galactic Hunting Consortium had opened new territories for their youth systems, where primitive species could provide proper training for their youth. It had been generations since the Zethkari had faced truly dangerous prey. What of this system? Zardok highlighted a yellow star with several habitable planets. Intelligence reports suggest one world harbors a species that has recently achieved interstellar travel. They call themselves humans. Velthara examined the data streams flowing across her vision. The biological specifications were interesting: bipedal mammals with excellent endurance capabilities. Their technology seemed crude but functional. Most intriguingly, they appeared to lack any natural predatory abilities. No claws, no venomous fangs, no natural camouflage. They seemed almost defenseless. "They hunt in groups," she noted, studying behavioral patterns. "Pack tactics. Primitive, but potentially educational for our students." The files contained fragments of human military engagements captured by long-range surveillance drones. Velthara watched with growing interest as human soldiers moved through various environments. Their methods were clumsy compared to Zethkari standards, but they showed remarkable persistence. "They compensate for physical weakness with tools," Zardok observed. "Like the Trilaxians of Sector 7. Perhaps. But look at this footage more carefully." Velthara enhanced a section showing human special forces moving through a jungle environment. Their camouflage was artificial painted faces and fabric coverings rather than natural adaptation. Yet something in their movement patterns caught her attention. They didn't move like prey animals. Despite their obvious physical limitations, they moved with the confidence of predators. "Curious," she murmured. The next file showed humans in Arctic conditions. Again, they relied entirely on artificial protection, thick clothing, heating devices, complex shelters. Yet they not only survived in the environment but thrived in it. Velthara had studied hundreds of species across the galaxy, and most could only survive in narrow environmental ranges. These humans seemed to adapt to anything. "Request permission to establish a hunting preserve on the 3rd planet," Velthara decided. "We'll start with limited contact. A few hunting parties to assess their capabilities." "Shall I prepare the traditional challenges?" Zardok asked. "Stealth kills? Endurance hunts? Territory marking?" "Yes, but maintain observation protocols. I want to understand these humans before we commit to a full training program." 3 months later, the first Zethkari hunting ships entered the Sol system. Earth's primitive detection systems registered them as asteroids, a simple matter of electromagnetic shielding and course plotting. The hunting parties deployed to remote regions where human presence was minimal. The first hunts were disappointing. Young Kethmore returned from the Alaskan wilderness with barely contained frustration. "The prey lacks proper challenge, Commander. They lumber through the snow, leaving tracks a blind hatchling could follow. Their scent signature is detectable from kilometers away. Most cannot even see properly in darkness." Velthara studied his mission recordings. Kethmore had stalked a human research team for 3 days, easily evading their primitive sensors. When he finally revealed himself, the humans had panicked exactly as expected from typical prey species. The kill had been swift and clean, hardly worth the preparation time. Perhaps we selected poor specimens, she mused. What of the military units? Specialist Yorthek had drawn that assignment. His report was slightly more promising. They possess better equipment and training, but remain fundamentally weak. I observed a squad conducting training exercises in their desert regions. Their tactics are sound for their limitations, but they cannot match our natural abilities. I remained undetected throughout the observation period. Similar reports came from hunting parties across Earth's surface. The humans were clever for prey animals. They used tools effectively and showed good cooperative instincts, but they lacked the sensory capabilities, physical attributes, and instinctive knowledge that made for worthy opponents. Velthara was beginning to doubt the wisdom of establishing a hunting preserve here when everything changed. It started with Kethmore's second mission. He had requested permission to hunt what human military files designated as Special Operations Personnel. The target was a single human operative, conducting some kind of reconnaissance mission in the mountains of Afghanistan. The mission should have lasted 6 hours at most. Kethmore didn't return. His emergency beacon activated after 48 hours, broadcasting distress signals from a location 70 kilometers from his last confirmed position. Velthara led the rescue mission personally, expecting to find him injured by human weapons, or perhaps caught in some kind of technological trap. Instead, she found him unconscious in a cave, bearing no visible injuries but suffering from severe exhaustion, and something the medical staff could only describe as psychological shock. I was hunting him, Kethmore explained during debriefing, his voice barely above a whisper. A simple stalk and eliminate mission. The human was alone, carrying primitive equipment, following predictable movement patterns. Velthara waited patiently. Kethmore had always been one of their most promising students. Steady, methodical, precise. Seeing him in this condition was deeply unsettling. I followed him for the first day using 7th form protocols. Standard approach, maintaining distance, cataloging his capabilities. He seemed unaware of my presence. I prepared for the kill approach as darkness fell. The young hunter's hands trembled slightly as he continued. When I woke up, I was lying in a ravine with my equipment scattered around me. I had been unconscious for unknown duration. The human was gone. You were overcome by exhaustion? Velthara suggested. The thin atmosphere, perhaps? No, Commander. My equipment readings show I was unconscious for exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes. During that time, the human had disarmed all my weapons, cataloged my biological readings with some kind of scanning device, and left behind items from my personal kit arranged in patterns I didn't recognize. Velthara felt the first stirring of genuine interest she'd experienced since arriving in this system. Patterns? Patterns? Kethmore activated his visual recorder, showing images captured after he regained consciousness. Personal items, hunting knives, communication devices, nutrient supplies, had been arranged in what appeared to be symbolic configurations. More disturbing, the human had somehow accessed Kethmore's sealed equipment compartments without triggering any security systems. He left this, Kethmore said, producing a simple piece of paper with markings in the human writing system. Velthara ran it through the translation matrix. The message was brief. Good hunt. Next time bring friends. She stared at the primitive paper for a long moment. In 8,000 years of Zethkari hunting tradition, prey had never left messages for predators. What happened during those 4 hours? She asked. I don't know, Kethmore admitted. My last memory is preparing the kill approach. My equipment shows massive system failures starting at 23:47 local time. Then, complete shutdown. When systems restored at 4:4, I was alone. Velthara dispatched 3 additional hunting teams to investigate. Their orders were simple. Locate the human who had bested Kethmore and determine how he had accomplished it. All 3 teams failed to make contact. Worse, their mission recordings showed the same human identifiable by unique biological markers, somehow tracking them despite their advanced stealth capabilities. In one recording, thermal imaging captured a figure moving parallel to the hunting team's position, maintaining perfect distance while remaining completely undetected by their natural senses. Impossible, Specialist Yorthek breathed as they reviewed the footage. No organic being can move with such precision while avoiding our sensory arrays. But the evidence was undeniable. The human was not only aware of their presence but seemed to be studying them with the same clinical detachment they used when observing prey species. Velthara made a decision that would have horrified the hunting council back home. She ordered her teams to withdraw and prepare for direct contact. The meeting was arranged through Earth's primitive communication networks. Velthara broadcast a simple message on frequencies she knew the humans monitored. The hunter wishes to meet the prey, who became the hunter. The response came within an hour, transmitted from coordinates in the same mountain region where Kethmore had been encountered. Grid reference, 34.5, 628 degrees north. 69.206, 5 degrees east. Come alone, dawn. Every instinct developed over millennia of hunting traditions told her this was a trap. Prey animals didn't dictate terms to predators. Yet something deeper, perhaps curiosity, perhaps the first taste of real challenge she'd experienced in decades compelled her to accept. She arrived at the coordinates exactly at dawn, using full stealth protocols and maintaining combat readiness. The location was a rocky outcrop overlooking a valley, offering excellent sight lines in all directions, a perfect place for either an ambush or a conversation. The human was already there. He sat cross-legged on a flat rock, wearing simple clothing and carrying no visible weapons. Velthara's enhanced senses detected no technological signatures, no hidden devices, no signs of backup forces. He appeared exactly as the intelligence files had described, a perfectly average human male. Physically unremarkable in every way. Yet something about his posture, the way he held his head, the casual confidence with which he sat exposed in the open air, made every predatory instinct Velthara possessed scream warnings. "You came alone," he said, in accented but functional Zethkari. "I wasn't sure you would." Velthara remained motionless, using her secondary eyes to scan for threats, while keeping her primary gaze fixed on the human. "How do you know our language?" "Same way I know your hunting patterns, your equipment capabilities, and your biological weaknesses," he replied with a slight smile. "I've been watching your people for quite some time." "That's impossible. Our arrival was undetected. By your governments, yes. But you've been observed since your first ship entered the outer system. We've been very interested in meeting you properly." The casual use of plural pronouns sent alarm signals through Velthara's combat systems. "We? The hunting community. People like me." The human stood slowly, his movements fluid and economical. "My name is Marcus Chen. I represent a group that takes particular interest in apex predators." Velthara's grip tightened on her concealed weapons. "You speak as if you consider yourself our equal." "Not your equal," Marcus said, tilting his head slightly. "Your student." Before Velthara could respond, Marcus moved. It wasn't the clumsy, inefficient movement she had observed in the surveillance footage. This was something else entirely fluid, precise, impossibly fast. He covered the distance between them in 3 steps that somehow made no sound on the rocky ground. Every instinct told her to strike. But something in his approach pattern triggered a deep recognition. He was using 7th form protocols. The exact techniques Kethmore had been practicing for decades, but that was impossible. Humans had no access to Zethkari training methods. The forms had been developed over centuries, refined through countless generations of hunters. No outsider could simply observe and replicate them. Marcus stopped exactly 1 meter away, close enough to demonstrate his confidence, far enough to show he meant no immediate threat. His stance was perfect, 7th form ready position. "How?" Velthara whispered. "Your people are excellent teachers," Marcus replied. "Very methodical. Very precise in your movements. It took me about 30 hours of observation to understand the basic principles." 30 hours? Velthara's voice carried disbelief that bordered on outrage. "The 7th form requires decades to master. For your people, yes. Your physiology is optimized for those movements. But it also constrains you. You can only execute the forms in specific ways because of your skeletal structure and muscle development. Marcus shifted slightly, demonstrating a variation of the stance that should have been impossible. 8. Humans are more adaptable. He began moving through a sequence Velthara recognized as the Phantom Strike, approached the same technique Kethmore had been practicing earlier. But Marcus was executing it in ways that defied everything she understood about the form's limitations. Where Zethkari hunters had to maintain specific postures to achieve optimal stealth characteristics, Marcus flowed between positions like water, achieving the same results through entirely different methods. His human physiology, which should have made him clumsy and inefficient, instead allowed him to adapt the techniques in ways no Zethkari could match. "Stop," Velthara commanded, her voice sharp with authority that had cowed 1,000 lesser predators. Marcus paused mid-movement, perfectly balanced on one foot, in a position that should have been unstable for his anatomy. "Something wrong." "You're doing it wrong," she said, then immediately realized how foolish that sounded. He was achieving perfect results, using incorrect methods. "Wrong how?" Marcus asked with genuine curiosity. "I'm getting the desired stealth characteristics, optimal approach angles, and maintaining silence protocols. But the form is designed for your people." Marcus finished. "I'm not your people. I have different strengths, different limitations. So I adapt." The word hung in the air between them like a challenge. Adaptation, the one thing Zethkari hunting techniques had never needed to account for. Their methods had been perfected over millennia, because they worked flawlessly for their physiology and environment. The idea of adapting them had never occurred to anyone. "Show me," Velthara heard herself saying. For the next 2 hours, Marcus demonstrated technique after technique. Silent movement patterns that used human flexibility to achieve what Zethkari accomplished through rigid discipline. Tracking methods that compensated for weaker natural senses with systematic observation skills. Combat approaches that turned human physical limitations into tactical advantages. Most disturbing of all, he did it while explaining the underlying principles with the casual confidence of someone discussing simple mathematics. "The key is understanding that every technique serves a purpose," Marcus said as he demonstrated a modified version of the stalking cat sequence. "Your people execute these forms because they work for your biology. But if you understand why they work, the physics involved, the psychological effects, the environmental interactions, you can achieve the same results through different methods." Velthara watched him flow through movements that should have taken decades to learn, executed with precision that rivaled master hunters. But more than that, she watched him improve them, finding efficiencies and variations that her people had never considered. "How many of you are there?" she asked finally. "How many humans?" Marcus paused in his demonstration. "About 8 billion. No. How many like you? People interested in hunting techniques? Hard to say. Maybe a few million actively practice various methods, a few thousand at professional levels." Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead. Apparently his adaptations didn't include improved thermal regulation. "But if you're asking how many could learn what I've learned, given proper observation opportunities?" He gestured vaguely skyward, toward the orbital hunting station where her people trained. "All of them," he said simply. "Adaptation is what we do." Velthara felt something she hadn't experienced in centuries of hunting: genuine fear. Not the pleasant fear of stalking dangerous prey, but the deep, existential fear of encountering something that fundamentally challenged everything she understood about the natural order. "Your student," she said, remembering his earlier words. "Kethmore. What did you do to him?" "Taught him," Marcus replied. "Same as you're teaching me, just in reverse. He's a good hunter, excellent technique, very precise, but he'd never encountered prey that fought back using his own methods. You used our techniques against him. I used what I learned from watching him, yes. Modified for human capabilities, adapted for the specific situation." Marcus sat back down on his rock, apparently considering the conversation casual and unthreatening. He was unconscious for a while, sedated, not harmed. "I needed time to study his equipment and biological responses." "You experimented on him?" "I gathered data," Marcus corrected. "Non-invasively. Medical scans, equipment analysis, Behavioral observation. The same things your people have been doing to us. The casual admission sent alarm signals through every threat assessment system Velthara possessed. You knew we were conducting research? Of course. Did you think 8 billion humans wouldn't notice aliens conducting hunting experiments on their planet? Marcus chuckled, a sound that somehow managed to be both friendly and deeply unsettling. We've been documenting every contact, analyzing every technique, studying every piece of equipment your teams have deployed. That's... Velthara stopped herself before saying, impossible again. Nothing about this human seemed to respect the boundaries of possibility. What did you think would happen? Marcus asked. You're apex predators from an advanced civilization, practicing hunting techniques perfected over millennia. You arrive on a planet full of curious, adaptable primates who specialize in learning things they're not supposed to know. What outcome did you expect? For the first time in her long life, Commander Velthara realized she had no answer to give. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the wind across the mountain peaks and the distant sound of human aircraft conducting their primitive transportation. Marcus seemed content to wait, while Velthara struggled with implications that challenged every assumption about the natural order of predator and prey. What happens now? She asked finally. That depends, Marcus said. Are you here to hunt us? Or are you here to learn? Commander Velthara returned to the orbital hunting station with her understanding of the universe fundamentally shaken. The casual confidence with which Marcus Chen had demonstrated mastery of techniques that took her people decades to learn haunted every thought. But worse than the demonstration itself was the implication behind it that humans had been studying them since their arrival. The emergency council session she called included every senior hunter aboard the station. Specialized display systems projected the recordings of her encounter, while biomonitors tracked the emotional responses of the assembled predators. What they saw challenged 8 millennia of hunting tradition. Impossible, Master Hunter Kolveth declared, after reviewing the footage for the third time. His scarred carapace bore trophies from hunts across 60 worlds, and his voice carried the authority of countless successful kills. No prey species develops counter-predator techniques this rapidly. Evolution doesn't work that way. Velthara had expected this reaction. The human isn't using evolution. He's using analysis. Analysis? Specialist Yorthek's mandibles clicked in confusion. You mean technological assistance? No. Velthara enhanced a section of the recording, showing Marcus executing the modified Phantom Strike sequence. He observed our techniques, identified their functional principles, and adapted them for his physiology. All without technological enhancement. The council chamber fell silent, except for the soft humming of life support systems. Master Hunter Kolveth studied the footage with eyes that had tracked prey across 100 different worlds. Show me the equipment analysis, he commanded. Velthara projected the data Marcus had somehow extracted from Kethmore's sealed gear compartments. Every technical specification, every energy signature, every biological reading had been documented with precision that rivaled their own scientific equipment. How did he access sealed military hardware without triggering security protocols? Kolveth asked. Unknown. But according to the timestamps, he accomplished the complete analysis in under 4 hours, while Kethmore remained unconscious. What manner of tools did he use? Velthara hesitated before answering. Preliminary scans suggest he used improvised instruments constructed from local materials. Plants, minerals, organic compounds, found in the immediate area. The silence that followed was deeper than before. Every hunter in the chamber understood the implications. Their advanced technology, weapons, and sensors developed over thousands of years had been analyzed and documented using tools made from rocks and vegetation. Master Hunter Zex Thara, eldest of the council, spoke for the first time. Her voice carried the weight of centuries spent perfecting the hunt. You believe this individual represents typical capabilities for their species? That's what terrifies me, Velthara admitted. According to his own statements, he considers his abilities unremarkable among his people. She activated another recording surveillance footage captured by their orbital sensors showing human military training facilities across Earth. Thousands of humans practicing combat techniques, survival methods, and tactical procedures that bore uncomfortable similarities to basic Zethkari hunting forms. They're not developing these skills in response to our presence. Velthara explained. These recordings date back decades before our arrival. They've been independently developing predator techniques as a species survival trait. Kolveth's claws extended involuntarily. An entire planet of potential apex predators. Worse. A planet of apex predators who specialize in adapting the techniques of other apex predators. The implication hung in the air like the scent of approaching storm. For 8,000 years, the Zethkari had been the undisputed masters of the hunt. Their techniques were perfect because they had been tested against every form of prey the galaxy could offer. The idea that those same techniques could be learned, adapted, and potentially surpassed by prey animals challenged the very foundation of their civilization. Zexthera was the first to voice what they were all thinking. We should withdraw immediately and recommend this system be designated off-limits. And admit that prey has become predator? Kolveth's voice carried sharp edges. Inform the Hunting Council that the greatest warriors in galactic history were bested by primitive mammals? Better than risking further encounters with beings we don't understand, Velthara said quietly. But even as she spoke, she knew withdrawal was impossible. The pride that made them perfect hunters also made retreat unthinkable. They were Zethkari. They didn't run from prey. No, Kolveth decided. We establish full hunting protocols. Bring down a squadron of our finest hunters. We study these humans properly and demonstrate that Zethkari supremacy remains absolute. 3 days later, 12 of the most accomplished hunters in Zethkari space arrived at the orbital station. Each commanded their own hunting vessel. Each bore the scars of successful campaigns across dozens of worlds. They represented 800 combined years of hunting experience and had never failed to bring down their designated prey. Master Hunter Rixthal led the squadron. His reputation was legendary. Even among Zethkari, he had successfully hunted the quantum-shifting Phoenix of Arcturus Prime, tracked the telepathic pack hunters of Vega 7, and single-handedly eliminated a rogue AI that had been terrorizing trade routes in the Meridian sector. One human, he stated during the briefing, examining the intelligence files with casual confidence. This Marcus Chen. You want me to deploy a full squadron against one individual who impressed you with party tricks? Velthara chose her words carefully. I want you to understand what we're facing before you underestimate it. Rixthal's laughter was the sound of confidence built on centuries of success. I've studied your recordings. The human uses modified versions of basic training forms, impressive for a primitive, but hardly threatening to a master hunter. He mastered techniques in hours that take us decades to learn. He learned simplified approximations. Rixthal corrected. The true depth of our hunting arts requires genetic predisposition, proper training, and decades of experience. No amount of observation can replicate that. Velthara said nothing more. Experience would teach what words could not. Rixthal's hunting plan was methodical and overwhelming. 3 hunters would establish perimeter control, cutting off escape routes and monitoring for technological interference. 3 more would conduct systematic tracking, using the advanced sensory arrays to maintain constant surveillance on the target. The remaining 6 would execute coordinated strikes from multiple directions, employing techniques that had never failed against any prey in galactic history. The operation began at dawn, with hunters deploying to positions across 100 square kilometers of mountainous terrain. Their target had been located through thermal imaging and biological sensors. Marcus Chen was conducting what appeared to be a routine training exercise in the same region where he had met with Velthara. Everything went wrong from the first moment. Hunter Kex Mar, positioned on the primary intercept vector, reported successful deployment and began standard tracking protocols. His last coherent transmission came 17 minutes later. Target acquired. Beginning approach sequence. Something's wrong. He's moving like he knows exactly where I am. The next transmission was static, followed by silence. The perimeter hunters converged on Kexmar's last known position, finding his equipment scattered across a rocky clearing with the same methodical precision they had seen in Kethmore's encounter. But this time, Marcus had left something additional, a detailed tactical analysis of their entire deployment plan, written in Zethkari and pinned to a tree with one of Kexmar's own hunting blades. The analysis was devastating in its accuracy. It identified each hunter's position, predicted their likely movement patterns, and outlined the weaknesses in their coordination protocols. Worse, it included suggestions for improving their tactical efficiency. Rixthal read the document with growing disbelief. He mapped our entire operation from a single observation point. The analysis is completely accurate, reported Hunter Velkoth from the eastern perimeter. He's identified positioning errors I wasn't aware I was making. Impossible. No organic being could process that much tactical data without technological assistance, but their own sensors detected no artificial intelligence, no hidden communication networks, no technological signatures beyond simple human equipment. Somehow, Marcus Chen had observed their deployment and understood their entire operational structure using nothing more than natural senses and analytical capability. "Where's Kexmar?" Rixthal demanded. They found him 6 kilometers away, unconscious but unharmed in a cave that showed signs of recent occupation. Medical scans revealed he had been sedated using compounds extracted from local plant life, a mixture that shouldn't have been possible to synthesize without laboratory equipment. When Kexmar regained consciousness, his report defied every principle of predator-prey interaction they knew. "He was waiting for me," Kexmar whispered, his voice carrying trauma that surprised everyone present. "Not hiding, not running, waiting, like he knew exactly when and where I would approach." "You were using full stealth protocols," Rixthal said. "No prey should have detected your approach." "He didn't detect me. He predicted me." Kexmar struggled to find words for something that challenged his understanding of reality. "He knew which route I would take, what approach vector I would use, even which tree I would choose for final observation. When I arrived at my planned position, there was a message waiting for me." Velthara felt cold dread settling into her bones. "What message?" 3 words in our language. "Learning in progress." The tactical situation had shifted from hunt to something else entirely. Marcus Chen wasn't behaving like prey being stalked by predators. He was behaving like a researcher conducting experiments on test subjects. Rixthal's pride wouldn't allow him to accept this interpretation. "Reconfigure for direct assault. No more stealth, no more observation. We end this with overwhelming force." "That's exactly what he wants," Velthara warned. "He's studying our techniques by forcing us to demonstrate them." But Rixthal had commanded successful hunts for over 2 centuries. His confidence was built on achievements that spanned the galaxy. Then we give him nothing to study. The modified operation was simple and brutal, a direct frontal assault using weapons and tactics designed to overwhelm rather than outmaneuver. No sophisticated hunting techniques, no elaborate stalking sequences, just superior firepower applied with mathematical precision. It lasted exactly 43 minutes. When the assault teams reached Marcus's last known position, they found elaborate preparations that demonstrated understanding of their new tactical approach. Improvised barriers constructed from local materials had been positioned to channel their attack vectors into predetermined zones. Simple but effective weapons created from scavenged resources were arranged to cover every approach route. Most disturbing, Marcus had somehow acquired pieces of Zethkari equipment, presumably taken from previous encounters, and integrated them into defensive systems that their own sensors couldn't properly detect. "He's using our technology against us," Hunter Velkoth reported, studying energy readings that made no sense. "But the integration patterns are completely wrong. This shouldn't work." "Yet it does," Rixthal observed grimly. The assault teams found themselves engaged in a running battle through terrain that their opponent knew intimately while they struggled with unfamiliar environmental factors. Worse, Marcus seemed to anticipate their tactical responses with unsettling accuracy. "He's not just adapting our techniques," reported Hunter Zarthek, during a brief pause in the engagement. "He's predicting our responses and preparing counters before we make our moves." "Impossible. He's had minimal observation time with our combat methods, unless he's been studying us longer than we realized." That thought sent alarm signals through the entire squadron. If Marcus Chen had been observing them since their arrival in the system, he would have had months to analyze their behavioral patterns, equipment capabilities, and tactical preferences. The realization came too late. Marcus ended the engagement by doing something no prey in galactic history had ever accomplished. he surrendered voluntarily. But on his own terms. They found him waiting at a predetermined coordinates, seated calmly beside a complex arrangement of captured Zethkari equipment that had been modified in ways their technicians couldn't immediately understand. "Gentlemen," he said in perfect Zethkari, as they surrounded him with weapons ready, "I think we need to talk." Rixthal approached with every predatory sense screaming warnings. "You surrender?" "I conclude this phase of research," Marcus corrected. "I've learned what I needed to know about your advanced combat techniques." "Thank you for the demonstration." The casual dismissal of their most sophisticated military capabilities as a demonstration struck Rixthal like a physical blow. "You consider this a victory?" "I consider this education." Marcus gestured to the modified equipment around him. "Your technology is impressive, but not incomprehensible. Your tactics are sophisticated but follow predictable patterns based on your physiological advantages and cultural assumptions." "Cultural assumptions?" "You assume that superior physical capabilities and advanced technology guarantee victory. You've never had to adapt to prey that learns as fast as you do." Marcus stood slowly, his movements showing no signs of stress despite having outmaneuvered a squadron of the galaxy's most accomplished hunters. "That's your weakness." Rixthal's claws extended fully. "And what is your weakness, human?" Marcus smiled. "I don't have your technology or your physical advantages. But I don't need them. I have something you've never had to develop. Which is the ability to learn from any teacher. Even teachers who don't want to teach." The modified Zethkari equipment around Marcus suddenly activated, projecting holographic displays that showed detailed schematics of their hunting vessels, complete tactical analyses of their operational procedures, and biological profiles of every hunter in the squadron. "How?" Rixthal breathed. "I've been studying you since your first ship entered our outer system," Marcus explained. "Every hunting expedition, every equipment deployment, every tactical decision. My people have been documenting everything." "Impossible. Our stealth technology is very good," Marcus agreed. "But not perfect. And once you understand the principles behind it, developing countermeasures becomes an engineering problem rather than a technological miracle." He activated another display, showing human-built devices that clearly incorporated adapted Zethkari technology. "We've been reverse engineering your equipment from electromagnetic signatures and observing your hunting patterns from orbital platforms you never detected." The implications hit Rixthal like a plasma burst. "You've been hunting us while we hunted you. We've been learning from you," Marcus corrected. "The same way we learn from every apex predator we encounter. Bears taught us patience. Wolves taught us pack coordination. Large cats taught us stealth techniques. You're teaching us things we never imagined possible. And what do you plan to do with these lessons?" Marcus's smile carried implications that made every hunter present check their weapon readiness. "Share them with 8 billion other humans who are just as curious as I am." The silence that followed was broken by the soft chiming of communication alerts from their orbital station. Velthara accepted the transmission, listening to reports that confirmed their worst fears. "Commander," came Specialist Zardok's voice, tight with barely controlled panic, "we're detecting massive communication activity across the human planet. Digital networks, broadcast signals, encrypted channels, all showing exponential increases in traffic volume." "What type of communications?" Velthara asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Unknown. But the timing corresponds exactly with the conclusion of the ground engagement. It's as if the entire planet was waiting for some kind of signal." Marcus nodded approvingly. "My colleagues have been very patient. They've been waiting for me to complete the initial assessment before beginning the next phase." "Next phase?" Rixthal demanded. "Integration and distribution," Marcus explained. "Everything I've learned about your technologies, your tactics, your capabilities, it's all being shared simultaneously with research teams across our planet. Within hours, millions of humans will be studying your methods and developing their own adaptations." The hunters exchanged glances that carried 8,000 years of accumulated shock. Their most closely guarded techniques, perfected over millennia, were about to become study material for an entire species of adaptive predators. You can't, Velthara said. These techniques require proper training, genetic predisposition, cultural context. For your people, yes, Marcus interrupted. For us, they're interesting puzzles to solve. And humans are very good at solving puzzles. He activated a final display showing preliminary human adaptations of Zethkari hunting forms. Hundreds of variations, each modified for human physiology, each finding new efficiencies that their original developers had never considered. The beautiful thing about adaptation, Marcus continued, is that it's exponential. One human learns something new and shares it with 10 others. Those 10 find improvements and share with 100. Those 100 develop variations and share with 1,000. And soon your entire species possesses knowledge that took us millennia to develop. Rixtal finished, understanding the scope of what was happening. Faster than that, Marcus said cheerfully. Modern human communication systems can share information globally in seconds. What you've taught me will be integrated into our species' knowledge base before your ships reach orbit. The communication from their orbital station confirmed the impossible scope of what was occurring. Human communication networks were carrying massive data transfers that included recognizable elements of Zethkari technology and tactical information. Stop this, Rixthal commanded. Halt these transmissions immediately. Marcus tilted his head curiously. How? You're asking me to prevent 8 billion humans from sharing knowledge. That's like asking water to flow uphill. We can destroy your communication systems. You could try, Marcus agreed. But you'd have to destroy every human settlement, every communications satellite, every digital network on the planet. And that would just force us to develop alternatives. We're very resourceful when threatened. The casual confidence with which he discussed planetary warfare sent alarms through every combat system the hunters possessed. This wasn't bravado, it was simple statement of fact delivered by someone who had clearly thought through the implications. What do you want? Velthara asked, recognizing that their position had shifted from hunters to negotiators. Partnership, Marcus said simply. You're the finest predators in the galaxy. We're the most adaptable learners. Imagine what we could accomplish working together instead of treating each other as prey. Rixthal's mandibles clicked in disbelief. You want us to train you deliberately? I want us to train each other, Marcus corrected. You have techniques we can't imagine. But we have perspectives you've never considered. Together, we could develop hunting methods that surpass anything either of our species has achieved alone. The offer hung in the air between them, a choice between maintaining traditional predator-prey dynamics or embracing something entirely new. For hunters who had spent their lives perfecting techniques designed to dominate other species, the concept of genuine partnership challenged everything they understood about the natural order. But as they watched human communication networks efficiently distributing knowledge that represented their civilization's greatest achievements, the Zethkari hunters began to understand that the choice had already been made for them. The age of unchallenged predator supremacy was ending. Whether they participated in what came next, or not. 6 months after first contact, the orbital hunting station had been transformed into something neither species had imagined possible. A collaborative research facility where the galaxy's finest predators worked alongside the most adaptive learners in known space. Master Hunter Rixthal stood in what had once been the sacred weapons vault, watching a human technician named Dr. Sarah Kim demonstrate modifications to traditional Zethkari hunting gear. The reverence he had expected her to show for weapons perfected over millennia was entirely absent. Instead, she handled the ancient tools with the casual confidence of someone solving interesting engineering problems. The power distribution system is elegant, she explained, completely disassembling a ceremonial hunting blade that had belonged to his great-grandfather. But you're losing 17% efficiency through thermal waste. If we route the energy matrix through these crystal matrices instead, the modified weapon she reassembled demonstrated capabilities that exceeded anything in Zethkari history, not through revolutionary new technology, but through simple optimization of existing systems that no Zethkari had ever considered necessary. How do you see these inefficiencies so clearly? Rixthal asked, genuinely curious despite his discomfort at watching sacred traditions treated as improvement opportunities. Fresh perspective, Dr. Kim replied, already moving on to examine a sensor array. You perfected these designs for your specific needs and physiology. But perfection for one purpose often means inefficiency for other applications. She activated the modified sensor array, which now provided detection capabilities across electromagnetic spectrums the original designers had never considered. Your people optimized for hunting individual prey in controlled environments. We've adapted your technology for collaborative hunting in unpredictable conditions. The collaboration had been Commander Velthara's idea, born from the pragmatic realization that humans would acquire Zethkari knowledge, with or without cooperation. Better to guide the process than let it proceed entirely beyond their influence. The decision had required approval from the Hunting Council back on Kepler 442b, debate that had lasted 3 months and nearly resulted in civil war. Traditional factions demanded immediate withdrawal and military action against the upstart prey species. Progressive elements argued for cautious engagement. But it was the economists who ultimately swayed the vote. These humans are developing our techniques faster than we are, Councillor Vexthera had pointed out during the final session. Within a standard year, they will possess hunting capabilities that match our own. Within 5 years, they will likely surpass us. We can choose to be their partners or their competitors. But they're prey animals, traditional leader Morthek had protested. The natural order. The natural order has changed, Vexthera interrupted. The question is whether we change with it or become extinct predators, clinging to outdated paradigms. The vote had been close, but pragmatism won over pride. The partnership began with limited cultural exchange and joint research projects. Within weeks, it became clear that both species were undergoing fundamental transformations. Dr. Kim finished her modifications and activated the enhanced sensor array. The display immediately populated with tracking data that would have taken traditional Zethkari equipment hours to compile. Impressive, Rixthal admitted. But you're missing the subtlety of the hunt. These modifications prioritize efficiency over the aesthetic perfection of the stalking process. Show me what I'm missing, Dr. Kim said, her tone carrying genuine interest rather than defensive dismissal. This was perhaps the most remarkable aspect of human collaboration, their willingness to admit ignorance and request instruction. Zethkari culture emphasized demonstrating competence and hiding weakness. Humans seem to view learning as a competitive advantage rather than an admission of failure. Rixthal spent the next hour explaining the philosophical principles underlying traditional hunting techniques, the importance of patience, the spiritual connection between predator and prey, the elegant beauty of a perfectly executed stalk that honored both hunter and hunted. Dr. Kim listened with complete attention, occasionally asking questions that demonstrated understanding of concepts Rixthal had never articulated clearly before. When he finished, she nodded thoughtfully. So the efficiency improvements interfere with the meditative aspects of the hunting process, she summarized. The technology becomes a barrier between hunter and prey rather than a bridge. Exactly. But what if we could enhance the spiritual connection instead of replacing it? Dr. Kim's next modification produced something neither species had conceived: technology that amplified rather than substituted for natural hunting instincts. The enhanced sensors provided environmental data, while preserving the subtle cues that allowed experienced hunters to feel connected to their prey. This is remarkable, Rixthal breathed, testing the modified equipment. The technological enhancement felt like natural extension of his hunting senses, rather than artificial replacement. You've improved the capability while preserving the essence. Humans excel at synthesizing different approaches, Dr. Kim explained. We don't see technology and tradition as opposing forces. They're just different tools for achieving the same goals. Similar breakthroughs were occurring throughout the orbital station. Human researchers were learning Zethkari hunting philosophies while contributing innovations that enhanced, rather than replaced, traditional methods. Zethkari hunters were adapting human tactical flexibility while maintaining the precision and patience that made them galactic legends. But the most significant developments were happening in the improvised training facilities. Master Hunter Zexthera watched a group of human students practice the 7th form of the Phantom Strike, under instruction from specialist Kethmore. The young Zethkari had volunteered to teach after recovering from his initial encounter with Marcus Chen, claiming that humans made the most attentive students he had ever worked with. No, Kethmore was saying to a human woman named Jennifer Walsh. You're trying to force the movement. The Phantom Strike requires flowing with natural momentum, not creating artificial force. Jennifer adjusted her stance and tried again. Her attempt was clumsy by Zethkari standards, but showed remarkable improvement from her previous effort. More importantly, she was developing variations that compensated for human anatomical differences while maintaining the essential principles. Like this? She asked, executing a movement that looked wrong but achieved perfect stealth characteristics. Kethmore studied her modified technique with growing excitement. That shouldn't work, but it does. Show me how you're compensating for the balance differential. What followed was a detailed discussion of movement physics that would have impressed university professors from either species. Jennifer demonstrated how human hip flexibility allowed alternative weight distribution methods, while Kethmore explained the energy flow principles that made the technique effective. You're developing hybrid forms, Zexthera observed, joining the conversation. Methods that combine our precision with your adaptability. Is that acceptable? Jennifer asked. You're not corrupting them, Kethmore assured her. You're expanding them. These hybrid forms work for human physiology in ways pure Zethkari techniques cannot. The training sessions had become collaborative development workshops, where both species contributed to evolving hunting methods that neither could have created alone. Humans brought creativity and analytical thinking. Zethkari provided centuries of refined experience and philosophical depth. But the true test came when Marcus Chen announced that Earth-based research teams had developed something unprecedented: hunting techniques specifically designed for multi-species cooperation. The demonstration took place in the station's primary training facility, with representatives from both species observing. Marcus led a mixed team consisting of 3 humans and 2 Zethkari hunters in a complex stalking exercise against automated targets programmed to exhibit unpredictable behavior patterns. What unfolded challenged every assumption about predator capabilities. The team moved through the training environment like a single organism with multiple perspectives. Human analytical skills identified pattern weaknesses in target behavior, while Zethkari sensory capabilities tracked movement with perfect precision. When targets attempted evasive maneuvers, the team adapted instantly, with each member contributing their species' strengths to maintain tactical advantage. Extraordinary, breathed Master Hunter Kolveth, who had initially opposed the collaboration. They're not just using each other's techniques, they're creating entirely new forms of hunting. The exercise concluded with the team successfully tracking and tagging targets that had been specifically programmed to defeat both human and Zethkari hunting methods individually. But the combined approach had capabilities that neither species possessed alone. This changes everything, Zexthera murmured. Multi-species hunting teams could track prey that no single species could handle. Marcus joined them after the demonstration, showing no signs of exertion despite the complex physical demands of the exercise. We're calling them synthesis techniques, hunting methods that require multiple species to execute properly. And you believe these methods are superior to our traditional approaches? Kolveth asked. For certain types of prey, yes, Marcus replied. But more importantly, they open possibilities neither of our species could achieve alone. He activated a holographic display, showing theoretical applications for the synthesis techniques, tracking entities that phased between dimensions, hunting artificial intelligences that existed in quantum superposition, stalking prey that could manipulate probability fields. There are predators in this galaxy that no single species has ever successfully hunted, Marcus explained. But collaborative teams using synthesis techniques might have capabilities that exceed even these ultimate prey species. The implications were staggering. For 8,000 years, the Zethkari had been constrained by the limitations of their individual capabilities. However impressive those capabilities might be, the partnership with humans was revealing possibilities that transcended the boundaries of any single species. But the transformation extended beyond tactical considerations. Commander Velthara reviewed the cultural integration reports with amazement. Humans were not just learning Zethkari hunting techniques, they were embracing the philosophical frameworks that made those techniques effective. Young humans spoke respectfully about the spiritual connection between predator and prey. They studied Zethkari poetry about the beauty of the hunt. They participated in ceremonies that honored the courage of worthy opponents. Conversely, Zethkari hunters were developing appreciation for human innovation and adaptability. The rigid traditions that had served them for millennia were being enriched by creative approaches they had never considered. Most remarkably, both species were discovering that partnership enhanced rather than diminished their individual capabilities. Humans learning from Zethkari became better than they could have been alone. Zethkari working with humans developed skills that pure traditional training could not provide. We're witnessing species-level evolution, Dr. Kim observed during one of the regular progress reviews. Not biological evolution, but cultural and technical evolution, accelerated through collaborative learning. And it's happening faster than anyone predicted, Velthara added. The knowledge exchange rate exceeds every theoretical model we developed. The partnership had also attracted attention from across the galaxy. Reports of the human-Zethkari collaboration were spreading through civilized space, generating responses that ranged from curiosity to concern to outright alarm. The hegemony of Cygnus had dispatched diplomatic envoys to assess whether the partnership represented a threat to existing power balances. The Merchant Guild of Vega was investigating potential applications for enhanced hunting techniques in resource extraction and colonization. Academic institutions throughout the galaxy were requesting access to the research data being generated by the collaboration. But perhaps most significantly, other predator species were beginning to request partnerships with humans. The Void Stalkers of the Andromeda region, whose natural abilities rivaled even the Zethkari, had formally proposed collaborative research programs. The Crystal Hunters of the Magellanic Clouds were offering technological exchanges. Even the legendary Dreamweavers of the Galactic Core had sent communications expressing interest in learning human adaptive techniques. We've started something that's spreading beyond our control, Marcus admitted during a private conversation with Velthara. Every apex predator in the galaxy wants to know how humans learn so quickly. Are you concerned about the implications? She asked. Marcus considered the question carefully. Change always carries risks. But the alternative is stagnation. The galaxy is full of challenges that no single species can handle alone. Maybe it's time to see what we can accomplish together. The conversation was interrupted by emergency alerts from the communications center. Specialist Zardok's voice carried unusual excitement as he announced the arrival of an unexpected transmission. Commander, we're receiving a priority communication from Earth's Global Research Consortium. They're requesting immediate consultation on what they're calling a transcendent hunting challenge. The main display activated, showing Dr. Elizabeth Carter from Earth's most advanced xenobiology research facility. Her expression carried a mixture of excitement and concern that immediately captured everyone's attention. Commander Velthara, Marcus, we need your expertise on something unprecedented. Dr. Carter began without preamble. Our deep space monitoring systems have detected an entity approaching the outer edges of our solar system. It's demonstrating capabilities that exceed anything in our xenobiological databases. The display shifted to show sensor readings that defied conventional analysis. The entity appeared to phase between physical and energy states, while maintaining perfect stealth across multiple electromagnetic spectrums. Its movement patterns suggested intelligence, but its behavior indicated hunting protocols that neither humans nor Zethkari had ever encountered. It's stalking something, Marcus observed, studying the movement patterns. But the prey signatures are unusual. That's because the prey is us, Dr. Carter said quietly. The entity is using our entire solar system as a hunting ground, and we appear to be the intended targets. Velthara felt cold recognition settling into her consciousness. Quantum Hunter. We've heard legends of such entities but never confirmed their existence. Legends? Marcus asked. Predators that exist partially outside normal space-time, Kolveth explained, joining the conversation. They hunt across dimensional boundaries and can stalk prey that exists in multiple realities simultaneously. No single species has ever successfully defended against them. But maybe, Marcus said slowly. No single species has ever had to. The implication was clear. The first true test of their partnership might not be a training exercise or a research collaboration, but a life-or-death hunt against an opponent that exceeded the capabilities of either species alone. How long before it reaches Earth? Velthara asked. Estimated arrival in 48 hours, Dr. Carter replied. It's moving through folded space in ways our physics teams can't fully explain. Marcus was already accessing tactical databases, his mind clearly racing through possibilities. We'll need synthesis techniques specifically designed for quantum prey. Combined human adaptability with Zethkari dimensional tracking capabilities. Can it be done in 48 hours? Kolvith asked. It has to be, Marcus replied. Because if we can't learn to hunt this thing together, both our species might become its prey. As alarms began sounding throughout the orbital station and emergency protocols activated, one thing became clear. The partnership between humans and Zethkari was about to face its ultimate test. The age of collaborative hunting was beginning not with ceremony or celebration, but with the approach of a predator that could only be faced by species working in perfect synthesis. The perfect predator had taken centuries to perfect. Humans had mastered it in moments, but now they faced something that would require both species to transcend everything they thought they knew about the hunt. The quantum hunter was coming, and only partnership would determine who would be predator and who would be prey.